Okay, guys, can you hear me? Because I mean, like I'm a bit confused because the feed that it normally gives me to let me know that you guys can actually see me and it's going out live is not working. It keeps coming up and saying exclamation mark. This video is private, but I know for a fact, and I've gone in and double checked that it isn't private. So I'm not sure why it's doing that, but maybe if someone could just put in the team comments if they can see me or not, that would be really helpful. Just because I know it's working. Can hear the live stream okay. Thanks, Jaden. Much appreciated. Good stuff. Coolio. Okay, cool. Alright, well, if you guys can hear me, good morning, hello, welcome. So, yeah, this is part 2 of my sort of challenge week. I'll post up a link a little bit later on for you as well for the first part if you're interested. Basically, the first part was actually making the stairs, the sort of staircases and stuff, which is a little bit more complicated and was probably better pitched at the second year just because they've got a bit more experience with using 3D modelling and stuff than you guys, obviously, because you guys have already got like a couple of weeks under your belt before we went on this crazy lockdown. So yeah. So I'm sort of part 2 is a little bit well, it uses things like Photoshop a little bit more, so I figured you guys would probably appreciate that. But as I say, I'm going to put the link up there for the first one because it's not necessarily something that you might want to have a go at yet. I think probably you might need to know a little bit more about 3D before you did ever go at it. But again, there's no reason why you can't look at that. And actually, the 2 hours that we had in that session wasn't long enough, so I'm going to have to do like a part 1 sort of section B or something for that, just to try and sort of help with that, to make it so that yeah, it all makes sense, because it's quite a complicated process. But anyway, I digress. So yeah, anyway, the focus for today is we're going to be looking at how we can basically put animated pictures into the Unreal Engine. Using Photoshop, 3D Studio Max, and then obviously the Unreal Engine, just to create that kind of effect that we have going on, where you've obviously seen, I'm hoping most of you seen Harry Potter and the portraits move and stuff. So yeah, we're going to look at doing that today. Now, it used to be a proper pain to do this because Unreal doesn't actually support the idea of GIFs going in there. So what you'd have to do back in the day is you'd have to basically just have videos in there, and actually videos into Unreal aren't exactly straightforward either, but at least you could get videos in, you just couldn't get animated GIFs in at all. Whereas with now you can, because what they've done is there's some very nice person called Neil Fang in December last year has created an animated texture with GIF importer, and this might look completely crazy and oh my god, what's he talking about, because we haven't even looked at Unreal Engine yet, but just to give you kind of an initial heads up on it, basically Unreal Engine allows you to add extra things to it, and this is a plugin, and the best thing about it is it's completely free, and all we had to do was just search animated texture with GIF importer. I figured it was worthwhile showing you guys this just because I didn't want to not show it you, in case any of you are thinking oh well, I've got summer holidays coming up, I've got a computer that can handle the Unreal Engine, why don't I have a little play around with this? And this might be something that you might want to have a little play around with perhaps, so entirely up to you. Obviously, I mean, you've probably picked up on this already now because it's near the end of the week, but challenge week for us tutors is basically, it's not kind of fine, polished tutorials. It's basically kind of for us to do something that we haven't really done before, and kind of give you an insight into how we perhaps look at the problem, or look at how we might try to resolve that. So yeah, so I will go through this in a sort of step-by-step way, but yeah, just a heads up, it's not going to be a polished way, so you'll probably hear me chuntering away at some points trying to work out how to do something, but hopefully it'll be smooth sailing. I think I've got the basic understanding of how to do this. It should be fine, because it's once you've learned how to do so many different things in these bits of software, you can kind of try and apply that knowledge to something that you haven't done before. So that's the basis that I'm going on. yeah, so anyway, this is free, and you would just download it and you would just enable it in the engine, and I'll show you how to do that a little bit later on. So yes, so that's where it is there. So we're going to get a picture frame going on there. So we've got some different picture frames that we can kind of download and nick. Obviously, we're not going to be selling this, so I'm using it for educational purposes, just to show you guys where to get this. And so there's just some pictures of some frames that we've got going on. That one's quite a good one. Nice big size as well, so that's quite good. That one is, well, that's huge. Okay, so we might use that one just because obviously the bigger the better, because we can make it smaller. Although having said that, even if we have something that isn't great quality, because we're going for that aesthetic where it's like the old sort of paintings and the old kind of photo frames within like the level. If it looks a bit like stretched, if it looks a bit worn, that's going to be alright, because that kind of fits the aesthetics. Okay, so we haven't got to be absolutely perfect and on ball with all of this, which is great. So yeah, just a heads up, like I might have to pause just because I'm using my Bluetooth earphones for this, because the quality of the microphone is a little bit better than the microphone that's included in the webcam, but it's making noises at me to say that it might run out of battery in a bit, which is really annoying. Actually, that's completely my fault. I used it all yesterday and didn't think to charge up today, so that's completely my bad. So yeah, there might be a small pause where I have to switch over, but yeah, it should let me know when it's completely died, so you won't see my mouth moving and be like, what, I can't hear him. But if that does happen, feel free to yeah, put something in the comments. I have got the comments open on the right hand side of the screen as well, so I am sort of trying to keep an eye on what people are saying. I'm trying my best with that. Okay, so the first thing we want to do really, I mean, there's two approaches. We could open up a picture frame up in Photoshop, and then edit that to the right size, and then push that over to 3D Studio Max, and then use that to help us work out the dimensions of it. Probably the more straightforward way of doing it is probably just going straight into 3D Studio Max though, and creating an object that we want. So I'm going to try it that way, see how we go. So I'll go to 3D Studio Max, Alt W to maximize my view, and then what I'll do is in the creation panel I'll choose box, just make sure I'm in the front. So yeah, actually I'm going to press F on the keyboard just to make sure I go into the front view, and then I'll just draw a frame out like that, and then bring it out that way. I suppose actually what we should really do first, thinking about it, is we should probably find an actual image that we want first. So let's go to classic paintings, and I'll go to tools. So I've searched classic paintings, and do you know what I'm going to do actually? I'm just going to switch it over now, because it just made another noise in my ear. I don't know if that was a kind of noise where it's like, oh, you need to switch over now, or let's try that one instead. Well, that's going to be really loud. Hello. Turn that one down. Okay, sorry. Sorry, I'll have to pause there just to get some kind of read from you guys, whether that's too loud or too low. I'll just go back to the comments. Sorry about this. Take this out here now. Don't need that. Yeah, if you guys could let me know if you can hear that okay, if that's too loud or if it's too low, I would be most grateful. Anybody? What we got? All clear. Lovely. Thank you. Cool. I think Jaden, you might be the only person that's watching this video, potentially. Although it does say there are 13 other people in there, so oh no, some of the people look like they're replying now. Tiny bit low, all good, it's fine. Okay, slightly mixed opinions. I'll tie it a little tiny bit up. Okay, I'm just worried that if I do, it's not a very good mic, because I say it's an internal to the webcam, and it would just become really distorted. But we'll go with it. There are other people's. It's fine. Cool. All right. Thanks, guys. Appreciate the feedback on that. Okay. Sorry. I will crack on and I'll take this thing off. Apologies again for not having that sorted and organised.
Yeah, okay, so what we can do is we go to Tools at the top, and we can go to Type and GIF. I should also just apologise in advance if you hear some like drilling noises and stuff like that. I'm having some work done in the garden, so hopefully it won't interfere. But if I say something and you miss anything, just give me a shout. So yeah, I've gone to Type GIF, and then we can find some different ones in here. So we've got this one, which is quite cool. Quite like that. That one's pretty awesome. So we could use that one potentially. There's also some, just a heads up, there's also some not very nice ones in here as well. So if you are having a go at doing this, be careful what you search for with it as well. Oh, that's interesting. Quite like that effect. Might not work for what we are going for, perhaps, but it is pretty darn cool.
Hello. Hello, hello. 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 Can everyone hear this? Oh, okay. Hello. Can you guys hear this? Cool. Alright, so sorry guys. I don't know what happened there. Like the levels on OBS, which I'm using to stream it, just decided to go down. That's really bizarre. So sorry. Can everyone just make sure? Yeah, everyone can hear. We can hear you. Cool. Okay. Rubbish. Okay, so I guess I just need to go back a little bit. So can someone just give me a quick, just type me out a quick note just to let me know roughly kind of where it got up to before it cut out. That would be really helpful, if that's okay, just so I can work out where to go back to for you guys. Gosh, what a nightmare. Pain in the bum. That is. Really sorry. Completely my fault as well for not charging these up. Cool. I'll plug it in now, just in case. Anyone know which bit we got lost on the audio on? Looks like a good sort of 5 minutes worth. Yikes. Give it that one. Okay. Alright, what I'll do is I will go back on the 3D Studio Max stuff then. So just in summary, what's happened so far is we've downloaded, when you open up Photoshop, I think. Cool, thanks Charlotte. Okay, so in Photoshop what I did is I just resized the animated GIF, and even though there's lots and lots of frames, because it's an animated GIF, you only have to just crop like one of the layers, and it will basically allow the whole thing to kind of shrink down, which is great, you know, so you don't have to spend time doing every single thing, which is awesome. So just do it for one, and then I just exported it, just went into the export menu and save it for web, because that's the way that you save animated GIFs in Photoshop, rather than kind of going through the save menu, if that makes sense. It's just a little bit of a different process because it's an animated GIF as opposed to like just a normal image file. So that's fine. I also said that, like, even though I know that because the height of it is 800, it's okay that the width of it wasn't quite 450. There was just, if I made it 450, I would cut some of the portrait out. So it was okay that it wasn't quite 450 and it's going to be slightly scaled out, just because they're old paintings, you know, that it's fine. I'm hoping will kind of add to the aesthetic. So it's one of those times where we don't have to be spot on perfect with all the stuff that we're doing, which is great. You know, it gives us a little bit of wriggle room, which is awesome. Cool. So that's Photoshop, and then what I've done in here, I'll start it again actually. So I'll just delete this, just so you guys can see the process. So what I've done is I've just gone to the front view, and I've just gone to the create panel, and then I've just created a box. Doesn't really matter what size, because I'm going to adjust all the parameters in a second. So it's currently this, but the lengthwise I'm going to make it so that this is 160, because I'm sticking with the whole 16:9 ratio. So 160, then I've got 90 on the width, and then I'll have 10 on the height, because I don't want it to be too thick, because obviously it's a painting. Probably go a little bit thinner than I wanted to, but we'll stick with 10. Cool. Then I press W on the keyboard, and you can see that the that's actually at the that's the world origin point there. So it's bang in the middle, which is why our 3D model is appearing bang in the middle. But I actually want this to completely appear above the grid. You know, so I want the pivot point to be at the bottom here, because that works best for Unreal as well. The Unreal Engine prefers it if the pivot point is at the bottom, because it knows then where it can place it. So it's just useful to kind of get used to that workflow. So I know what to do that. It's dead easy. I just need to change the pivot point. First off, I'll just double check this pivot point is exactly at 0 by going to the bottom. And you can either type in 0, 0, 0 in these bits, or you can just right click on the up and down arrows, and that will set it perfectly to world origin point or 0 point, like that. And then I'll go to the third tab along, and I'll check where it says effect pivot only, so that's highlighted. And then you'll see that this has changed to let me know that it's in the effect pivot only mode. And then I know that the height of this is 160 centimeters. So I will change, and it's the halfway point, so I just need to half that, which is obviously 80. And I'll go minus 80. So it goes to the bottom, like that. Cool. Untick effect pivot point only. So the pivot point is now at the bottom of the model. And I can just right click on the Z again, so that shifts it all the way back up to here. So yeah, hopefully that makes sense. Perks of it being on the video, because if it didn't make sense, you can always go back and have a look again. Cool, so that's in the right position now. And then what I'll do is, in order to sort of start making adjustments to this, I'm just going to go to the Modify tab, and I'm going to apply an Edit Poly onto this. So I can either go into the Modifier list and search for Edit Poly, or if you're like me and you've got shortcuts set up, just because these are things that I often use, so I'll just click on Edit Poly, like that, so it puts it into a mode where I can start to edit it. And then I will click on Polygon, choose the front face like that, and then go to Inset, okay? And I'll inset it by about 10 centimeters, should be okay. So it gives it a nice outward frame. Click OK. If I press F4 on the keyboard as well, which turns on edge faces so we can see where the edges are, you can see that's what it looks like now. Okay, so that's basically the photo frame, just like that, nice and easy. What I might also do with this bit here is I'm going to go to extrude. I'm going to negatively extrude it by about 5 centimeters, so it goes in a little bit like that. Okay, so it's got a bit of a border around there as well. Okay. And then I will go to the edge tool, double click to select all the edges that go around, and I'm just going to move that. I'm not going to be exact with it, I'm just going to move it by eye a little bit, like so, like that. Cool. And then with the outside edge, So again, double clicking to select the outside edges. I'm going to move it out slightly. Cool. So I've just got that kind of, that effect going on just like that. There. Nice one. Okay. So I'll go back to edit poly, just there. I'll select it, so I've got the whole thing selected now. And I'm going to apply something called an unwrap UVW. So I think the things that I've done so far are roughly within the spectrum of things that we kind of touched upon before we broke up for lockdown. But this kind of is going to new territory, so I'll try and explain it a little bit better, just so that it makes a little bit of sense. So in order to start thinking about texturing your 3D models, so having it appear in the way you want to, there's lots of kind of inbuilt options within 3D Studio Max to kind of give it colors and maybe make it like more metallic so it looks shiny, or make it look like glass, that kind of thing, which is really cool. But if we want to start actually kind of creating custom textures, things that we actually put on ourselves to make it look the way we want to make it look, then you're going to need to be using things like Photoshop in conjunction with 3D Studio Max to get those textures, and you're going to have to set up your model so that the textures appear in the right place on the model. And the way that we do that, there's a couple of different approaches, and we're going to do both of those approaches actually for different sections of this picture frame. So the first one we're going to do is we're going to do something called an unwrap UVW. Okay, so if I click on this, that is another modifier that applies to this one here. Okay, and I'm going to open up what that looks like at the moment. So I'll go to open up UV editor. Don't worry guys, as well, I should say at this point that we're going to go through this like methodically when you guys come back, for your second, this is going to be something you're looking at. So this is kind of almost a bit like more of a heads up in terms of what to expect. And if I select all of that, okay, you can see that it's currently there. So if you look at what we've got here in terms of this shape, it's not looking anything like this shape, okay? And that's actually the reason, if you're interested, the reason why it does look like this is because originally this was a box. And a box has 6 sides, and if those 6 sides are all even, then it's happy, because it's just basically that there that you can see. It's all 6 sides based on top of each other. Yeah. So really useful, really good for if it's just a simple box, but not so useful if it's something like this where it's got different bits and bobs in it. So we just need to refine that. The easiest way to do that is just select all of it. And obviously the more complicated your model, the more complicated this process is. But for something like this, we just need to select the whole thing, and we just go up to mapping types. And there's loads of different mapping types down here, which again we'll probably go through when you guys come back for the second year. But for now, we can just click on unfold mapping. Click OK. Ooh, that did not work as I expected at all. Interesting. You're just a little bit off there. And you should be up there like that. Okay. Alright, no worries. In that case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do it slightly differently then. So I want this, which is the back bit. So it's that piece there. And then you've got this bit folding over. So you can kind of see, like, if you ever did that thing at school where it was like you made a dice out of paper, you can kind of see what's going on here. So you've got all those bits and they're folded from that bit there. Okay, so that's fine. And then of course you've got the middle bit there, which is the back. Okay, so that is happy. Okay, the front bit not so happy because I've got all these crossovers just here. All right, so we'll see if we can get this to work a little bit. Okay, so if I just pull this out from there. Okay, so I'm going to break this. I'm going to click on this to break it apart so it's not attached to anything. That is actually going to be where we put our picture. Okay, so that's going to be there. All right. And then what I want to do next is I'm going to go to my edge tool, click on this here, and that's going to be connected to this part just here. Okay, so I'm going to have to break this as well. So I'll go back to my polygon tool, like this, and break that away. Okay. In fact, what I'm going to do is, just to help me with this process, is I'm going to select all those pieces rather than having to unbreak them all individually. And with this bit, I'm going to go to flatten mapping. Flatten mapping, sorry, I should say. Like so. There we go. So it's put them all individually now. It should put them all individually, apart from that bit. Okay, nice, cool. So that bit. So you can see that what it's done is now it's kind of laid them out a little bit like you'd expect in an IKEA drawing or something, like where they're all next to each other but not overlapping. Okay, that's fine. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grep this bit just here, and I'm going to put my angle snaps on so it only rotates at 5 degrees. So I can get it perfectly looking like 90 degrees. That's good. Okay, and then I'm going to go to my edge tool just here, and if I select this and click custom stitch, it will connect that bit to it for me. Okay, that's supposed to be above it. So that, just to check, because it is always worth checking, that is actually going to be the top bit, and that is just there. Okay, cool, nice one. So we can see that bit now. Okay, let's move these out of the way a little bit more. Down here, so I'll select this edge, and hopefully that will connect as well. That bit, and it does. So that's now the bottom bit, like that. Cool. And then hopefully we should just be able to apply the same things to the sides just here as well. Fingers crossed. Yep, that's fine there. And that's fine there. Wicked. Okay. So I've got the insides going on just there. Perfect. All right. Now I mean, oh, should we give it a whirl? Let's do it. Let's see what happens. So if I now click stitch for that, that brings the whole thing in, which isn't necessarily a good thing. So let's break these up as well. So select that, break that, just move that over there, grab that, break that, put it over there. I always think like the break thing looks a little bit like a shopping basket that you get from, like, obviously the shops. I always describe it to people that way. That's the break one. It just separates it from any polygons that it's attached to. So as doing that, we shouldn't just now be able to put these in here. Okay. Stitch, stitch, like so. Cool. And then the top one should also be stitched. Okay, so that's fine. So that's all there now. Okay. Now that's great in principle because it's all connected where we want it to there. I don't want to go into too deep because obviously this isn't supposed to be this intense. But just to briefly say, the reason why I try to do it where I unfolded it first is because it's really good to have your polygons right next to other polygons, because on your actual model you want there to be continuous kind of flow. So for example, down here, if I'm painting like a wooden texture down in this corner here, then I want that to continue on to this piece here. Now if you look down here, those two pieces aren't connected, so that makes it more difficult in Photoshop to try and make sure there's a continuity between those 2 points. So that is an issue that we're going to run into when doing that. Ideally these 2 points need to be together. A way that we could get around that is that we could actually don't have to have this kind of outside border connected at all to this inside bit. We could just have this as a we've got 2 UV islands. They're called UV islands at the moment. We could have 3 UV islands by just having that bit, the bit in the middle, and then the bit around the edge if we wanted to. I'm going to see how I go though. I'm going to see how we go with this. So I'm just going to select all those bits there. I'm going to click on, if I can remember which one it is it the bottom one? Yeah, rescale elements. That just means that it resizes it in relation to each other. And then I'll click on pack together. Okay, like that. Cool. And then they go, so they've been packed together into the UV space, like so, and that's all good. So now all I need to do is I just need to send this over to Photoshop so I can start like painting over it and putting the things in the right place. So I'll go to Tools, down to Render UVW Template. Let's make it something. I'm going to. The standard default size is 1K or 1024, but we're going to go for a 2K texture. So we're going to go for 2048, 2048, like so. And then I want to change the mode to solid, so I see solid objects. I'll leave show overlaps in red ticked for the time being, just to see if there are any overlaps. And we want to see visible edges and seam edges as well, because that's going to help us work out which bits are which. So I'm going to render that out, and it's opened up on my screen, so I'll just pull it in here, zoom out a little bit, okay, and there you go. That is how it looks, roughly. So just going to click on the save icon, and it's going to crash on me? No, it's not. It's okay. We're all good. I'm going to obviously put it in my folder that I've already got here. So we're going to call it, just call it picture. It's easy enough. Picture underscore UVW for the UVW map. Save it as a PNG because we want it to have gaps in it, of course. Click save, and that RGB value is fine. Click OK. Just checking on the comments. No one said anything about the audio going again, which is good. So that's cool. So I'm going to close that down. And I'll close that down. And what I'll do is I'll leave this open for the time being, just because it's going to, I think it will help us with reference to what's going on. So I'll just have this on this side there, and this, and we keep flicking back. And this is why it's obviously really useful as well to have two screens at home if you're lucky enough to have that. Or obviously when we're working at Confetti, we'll have our two screens, because you can have this open on one screen and then Photoshop on the other screen. I'll just keep flicking back and forth between them now. Cool. That's all good. So obviously this bit is behind, and so actually we don't need to worry too much about the behind bit, because we're not going to see that. It's going to be up on the wall. We're going to see these bits potentially, so we're going to have to add something to this bit. I mean, I'll still add something to the back, but I'm not worrying about too much. Obviously the most important bits are going to be the front sections just here. Okay, so this is on the right hand side of the UV map, and that's what I'm going to be paying attention to inside Photoshop. So let's go back over to Photoshop, and I'll go to open, and then we'll go to this bit just here, and then there it is. There's the file just there. Cool. Okay, so this is where our UV island is. I'll go to window and time as well, because I don't need that anymore, so we've got a bit more space. And you can see obviously, because I've told it to have the seam edges in there, we can see where the lines are as well, which is really useful. So this is obviously the inside borders, which is useful. Okay, so let's have a look at this, see if we can work out how to do this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to search for an image of a photo frame. So let's go over to here. So this one will look quite good. So I'll go here, and what we'll do is I'll download that one, save that one in there. Oh, I've already got it. Oh, I must have already downloaded it. Awesome. I guess. Yeah, cool. Okay. Wicked. And then what I'll do is I'll just go to File and is it Place Embedded? Yep. Pick Place. Nice. Okay. So probably just want to make a couple of. I'll just hit Enter to confirm that. I just want to make a couple of edits to that, so I'll just go to Magic Arrays. I've got to rasterize it first. There we go, cool. And then maybe just the edge as well. Nice. Okay. So let's grab this and hold down Shift to rotate it with snaps, so it goes to 90 degrees. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to push this down here like this for this bit here. Okay, and then I'm just going to try and line this up a little bit best I can. So squash that down like that, and that's going to go up to that line there. Now don't worry too much about that it's going to look a little bit strange in Photoshop, because the aspect ratio in here is not going to be true of what appears in Freestream Match, because obviously it's tried to squash all the texture space down to this square. So if it's off proportion here, don't worry too much about that, because that doesn't mean it's going to appear like that in the other one, if that makes sense. Okay, so this is what I was talking about before, where you've got the slight issue with the corners just not being connected to each other. So I might not be able to get away with it. I might have to go in and change it. We'll have to see. Okay, but we'll see how we go. See how good / terrible that looks. Okay, so I'll click confirm, and then I'll hide the underneath layer, and then what I'll do is I'll click on save, and then we'll go save as, and then I'll save that as a PNG, and I'll just call it picture 2. Bad naming conventions, apologies, but we'll go with it. Picture 2, click confirm, click OK, and then I'll go over to back to 3D Studio Max, and then we probably won't need that for reference actually. I can always open it up again if we need to. So always a good idea as well to right click and collapse all. That's kind of like the same process of in Photoshop of where you merge all the layers. There's points in 3D Studio Max where you have to do that to make it work properly. So for example, now if we just kind of left it as it was and exported it out, that Unreal map that we just created wouldn't have been set in stone. It would have reverted back to its original UV map, which is, if you remember, was just like the squares that were all overlapping each other, and that means that this new UV map that we're creating wouldn't work properly. So I'll press M on the keyboard, and that's a shortcut for opening up the material editor. And if I can, I'll just select one, and I'll just drop it onto the 3D model, like so. And then what I need to do in here is I need to add the image file for it. So the way you add image files, bit of a strange way of getting into it, I've always thought, but the way to do it is, so diffuse, that's where you can change, I'll bring this over here, that's where you change the color of it, so I can, you know, make it like blue or whatever you want, fine. But then if you want to actually add in a texture, you click on the little node next to it, and this opens up this menu where you click on bitmap to open up your images. And I'll go to desktop, and then so the image that I want is this one just here. Click open, like so, and you have to also click on this one here where it says show shaded material in viewport, like so. Press forward to come off it, and yeah, so it's kind of looking okay, but you can see that, you can really see that line. The reason why you can see that line so much is because it's so different, you know what I mean? Like there's obviously a different texture in there straight away. So I think we're just about going to be able to get away with it though. I really do. I think we might just get away with it. Especially on the basis that we are again going for that kind of like slightly shabby looking picture. Not massively happy about that line there. I might kind of like, just because I don't want to sort of waste your guys' time too much today in terms of me going back and forth, I might just stick with it for the time being, and sort of going back and refine it a little bit later, just so I can show you the process of this. Cool. And then another thing to show you as well is if I select this, I want the painting to actually appear in this middle here. And so the easiest way to do that, rather than trying to make that part of this UV map, is actually to change the material ID. So I'll have a completely different kind of material setup for this middle point. And the way to do that is just to select it. In fact, what I'll do is I'll press Control A first to select everything and make sure that everything on there is set to an ID of 1. Okay, so that now everything you can see is set to an ID of 1. And then if I select the middle point, I'll set that to an ID of 2. So this is material IDs. Press M again. And then what I need to do this time is I need to change this standard material to a multi-sub object. Keep old material as well, so that one we put in there, we're going to keep that. Click OK. And now what that does is it allows me to have multiple different materials just in that one material slot, which not only saves space, but also allows for this option where you can specify what you want on different points. Yeah, so just go into here again and make sure that's showing as shaded, because it resets that if you change it to a multi-sub. Click on, I should show you as well, I'm clicking on this button here which says go to parent, so it's basically going back up. And then, so ID of 1 is set to everything else, and let's look at the back. That's obviously not anything yet, because that's that's just a white area at the moment for this, isn't it? Everything is, there's nothing there, it's blank. But 2, we're going to have that picture in there, so we'll go to standard, and then I'll go to choose the image again for that bitmap, and I'll choose that just there, click open, show it in there, and it's not showing in the right place of where it needs to be, but we're going to sort that out now. So what we'll do is I'll go into this and we'll choose, so last time we used unwrap UVW, which gives you a lot more freedom to move things around in lots of different ways. But sometimes you can just get away with a simple UVW map, like so. Okay. Okay, but you need to make sure you select the polygon first, sir, I should say. So make sure you're just selecting that one polygon and apply the UVW map to that. There we go. Otherwise it affects everything. Okay. Cool, that's in place. Click like that. Okay, and there you go. So that is now been set into the right place. So again, what I did is I right clicked on UVW map and collapsed it. That it's called baking. We use terminology called baking in 3D modeling. That bakes that UV map onto the model, so it remembers the position of where that texture is now supposed to appear on the model. So that's set up perfectly there. Okay, I just need to go in now and sort the edges out. I'm just going to do something real basic for that. Let's just see what works best. So I'll just unhide that bit there. It's just going to be okay. So probably the easiest thing to do is just to get like lots of duplicates of this. So I'm just going to grab that, press Alt to duplicate it and move it over like that. Combination of spot healing, combination of patch tool, combination of clone, I think. So do that, and then yeah, just because it's the back, so I'm not worrying too much about it, if that makes sense. I'm going to worry a little bit more about the edges, so to speak. So I'm just going to put this in with a clone stamp first. What we could have done, sorry, I should show you this first actually, just to see how this works. I think we've had a go at doing this in Photoshop before. I'm pretty sure we have, but just in case, it's not letting me go back any further than that, so I'll delete the layer, and I'll just like so. Yep. Yeah, so as I said, I think we've had a go at doing this before, but if not, so I'll go to selection, and I'm just going to select these bits over here, like that, okay, and then, it might let me do it, might not do, switch the right layer, go to edit, go to fill, and then content aware, click out, it's going to think about it for a second. It should just fill it up with this kind of this woody texture in theory. Might look like an absolute mess, but it wasn't looking great the way that I was doing it. I just want to have some kind of aesthetic of wood on it, really. Wow, it's really not liking that. He is thinking long and hard about what to do. There we go. Whoa! Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. Kind of wasn't expecting that, but I kind of like this pattern down here where it's going upwards. So actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick with that. And what I'll do is, should I use the patch tool? Is that going to work? Patch tool. You're kind of liking it? Ish. Might just be better with the clone tool. Make it a bit bigger perhaps. Alt to choose your location that you want to clone from. And don't have to worry about that too much because obviously that's on a completely different layer, which is great. So yeah, that kind of I think we're okay. Nice. Okay, so that is the kind of the completion of it. What I'll do is I'll just move that underneath that as well, so that's not going to interfere. I will just make sure as well actually, just to be super, just run that down there, just so I know it's not going to interfere. There we go, cool, that should be okay. So yeah, so we've got that. Now a cool thing as well that we can do to this as well to really kind of try to bring the 3D model alive, I'll just click save on this actually, and what that should do is if I save it as PNG, replace existing one, that should then update in 3D Studio Max for us. Click it. Hello. Why aren't you updating? Should. I made sure I said should, didn't I? Should update for us. Oh, it's because I've written over the original one, you wally. That's why. It's looking at the wrong file. I named it as picture 2, didn't I? So all I need to do is just go into the actual picture. So go to this one here, go to the bitmap, look at where the location is, click it, and then just change it to the right one. Click OK, like that, and there you go. Cool. So we've got that kind of that texture going down the sides just there. That's okay, and the back looks alright. Yep, so that's kind of worked out quite well. Okie dokie. So that's looking all okay. I'm going to name you an original title of picture frame. Yeah, that's fine. I'm going to export you out in just a second. However, I just wanted to show you one cool thing that we can do. So in order to do this properly, I need to merge layers, so I don't need that UVW layer anymore that was guiding us to where the UV islands were. So I will just right click and merge visible to put this all together. So there's a cool tool that you can use in in Photoshop where you go to filter and you go to 3D and you generate normal map. So I don't know if you guys have come across normal maps before, but what they do is normal maps in a nutshell basically create the illusion of depth using a texture map. So back in the day, if you wanted to have like intricate details on, you know, something like this, where you've got like these kind of little these marks here and stuff like that, and you wanted them to actually appear in on the 3D image, because that then allowed a greater sense of realism, then you would have had to have actually modelled that. Now the problem with that is then that becomes really expensive computationally, because that's a lot of polys. At the moment, if I hit 7 on the keyboard, you can see that this only has 14 polys. There's only 14 polygons in that, which is incredibly low, which is fantastic. You know, that's really, really cool. But if I was to have all that extra detail in there from here, that would go up into the thousands easily. So you've got a very expensive asset for something that's just, you know, just on the wall, that you want to look fairly realistic. So basically normal maps, what they do is they try and create the illusion of that detail by creating like, it's sometimes referred to as a bump map as well. And it creates essentially like a little bit of height in the texture, which is really cool. So as I said, all we need to do that is to go to filter and 3D and across the normal map. And at the moment, you can see it looks a little bit like this. Let me just see if I can zoom. It's not letting me zoom out whilst I'm in this. Okay, so essentially we've got things like we can invert the height. So it might be that the wrong things are in height. So if I invert the height there, there you go. Now you can see that detail there is coming out instead. So we can choose which one we want to have, which bits we want to have in and out. And obviously we don't have to worry about any of this stuff in the middle, if you remember, because this is where the picture's going, and we've told it that we don't want that section of the model to pay attention to this particular texture, because this particular texture is set to ID of 1 in 3D Studio Max. This particular section here of our model is set to ID of 2, and that's where we put the picture. So we don't have to worry about what any of this looks like. We don't have to, you know, worry that this is going to interfere, because it's not set to the right material ID. It's only the outside bits, and then the bits that are around the edges for the back bit. You know what I mean? And obviously then the edges of the frame there. So so we've got a couple of things to play around with. We've got detail scale, and as you slide it up and down, obviously it'll give you an understanding of how much that's doing. So you want something sort of fairly high, just to kind of capture that detail. And then we've got these ones over here which we can slide along, which allow us to do that as well. So we've got the contrast details of the low, medium and the high. So if I lower these ones down, it gives me a little bit more contrast, and if I move this one up, it'll give me even more. So it's just about really finding the right kind of bits. Now this is obviously a nice quick way of doing it. On the second year you'll be looking at something called Quixel Mixer, which gives you a much more involved approach to how you do normal maps, and we'll be going through that in when you kind of reach the 3D texturing part of the course, if that makes sense. So this is just a great workaround. This is just a nice easy thing to do, just to add a little bit more of an aesthetic quality to the model for the time being. So I think let's just yeah, I think that's okay. I think we're okay with there. So yeah, we'll go with it, and I'll click OK to confirm. And then again, you just got these sections around here that it's just highlighting. Yeah, so I'm mostly interested in this bit, this frame section, not so much these bits over here. Now, this is another, I mean, I say this is wonderful and it adds this. This is another, again, disadvantage to not having your islands meeting up next to each other, because I've got, and I'm roughly guessing that where the edge was originally, it was about there, with that line that I'm kind of creating, and then the bottom bit, the line was there. So this section here is kind of roughly empty. That means what tends to happen sometimes with normal maps is that if you don't have things lined up properly on your UV island, you can see that more once you add a normal map. So you might just be able to just about get away with it if it's just a standard image file. But if it's normal map on it as well, it can really show that up. Let's have a look. Let's see how that pans out. So I will save as a PNG again, but at the end of it, I'm also going to put _n for normal. Click OK to confirm that. Now it's not going to show up as well in 3D Studio Max anyway as it will in the Unreal Engine, but we'll just have a look to see how it looks. So I'll just go up to make sure I'm in the right bit. I'm in the right bit? Yeah, cool. Okay, so in this one here, I just want to go to maps. So obviously at the moment you can see that the map that we have for diffuse color is the picture, but then down here where it says bump, we're going to go to no map, put bitmap in, choose the normal map for that. Go back up again because you can see that you've got the amount here and everything set to 100, but for the bump map is set to like 30, so I'll put that to something like 80 instead. And I've also noticed that you can't really see it that well when you're in standard mode. You have to go to high quality mode to really see it. I guess I think about it. So let's look at the corners, see if we've got away with it. Yeah, it's really not very happy with it at all there. That's a massive shame. Yeah, so I think after I've done this, after I've kind of finished with you guys, I am going to have to go back in, and what I'll probably do is what I suggested before, where I had 3 UV islands, so that this outside bit here, this edge, if you like, is all connected to each other perfectly, rather than having gaps, just because it's going to help with the visuals of that perfectly. So yeah, not going to lie, I'm a little bit disappointed, but it's my own fault. I should have realised that was going to happen, so that's what happens with these things. These things do happen. Cool, okay, so let's get it into the engine, nice and easy. So I'll just go to File, and I'll go to Export. So 9.9 times out of 10, if you're ever exporting a model out of 3D Studio Max, and you want to use it in something like Unreal, you want to export it as an FBX file, okay? So I'm going to go to Export, and I'm going to go to the HP Stairs, and it automatically puts it as an FBX file. I'm just going to call it Portrait. Okay. And then this is all fine. That's fine, all standard. It's okay. Put it to binary. Don't worry about any of that. That was just something I was messing around with earlier. And just remember the settings. But yeah, these binary and FBX 2014-15 will be your standard FBX formats. And even though it's not up to date, it's always good to keep it back a little bit, because some softwares don't do very well with newer versions of FBX. So it's just safer to keep it as an older version. You know, not everything that's brand spanking new is always the best. So yeah, that's fine. Click OK. So that's been exported now, so I'll minimize that down now. So Unreal Engine, basic overview. Okay, so I've asked it to load up a project, and for this one I'll just use a third person project. I don't want any starter content, so that's all good. I'll just call it Hogwarts tests, maybe. Yeah, cool. And then create project. So the templates always have, you know, like basically a first person character in it, or a third person. I've gone for a third person, so it's kind of over the shoulder camera that you can see going on. So this is just the standard template that you get, and obviously, as I say, when you get to second, you get plenty of time to play around with this one. First person is like, you know, first person shooter. You get like a gun and you shoot sponge balls. It's very, you know, it's very safe, very diplomatic. Cool. Okay, so down here at the bottom, this is where you import content to. So I'm just going to go to the content folder. So this works just like your file, like your folder down here does. You know, it's like it's set up in a hierarchy. So I'm just going to go to import, and I'm going to find that FBX, so portrait. Click open. Pops up with this. You know, and again, I'm not going through this because I'm expecting you to remember all of this. You know, this is basically, I'm hoping, but if I show you this now and you get some kind of climatization to it, then the majority of you will be like, okay, this looks semi-familiar when we kind of look at doing this next year. But of course, I appreciate, and I hope, obviously, there's some very ambitious ones of you as well that might want to be like, yeah, some holidays, you know, I'm going to have a go at this, so I'm fully prepped and ready to have a go at it. And hopefully this will help you. And of course, you know, you can always ask me questions if something didn't quite make sense, and can help you out. So yeah, so we don't want it to be skeletal mesh because skeletal mesh implies that there's animation and bones. There's no bones in it because it's just a simple static mesh. Unreal call it static mesh. We call it model. They call it static mesh. It's the same thing. Everything else should be absolutely fine. I'm going to ask it to bring in the materials that are associated with it as well, because obviously we added some materials to it. It won't bring in the image. It won't bring the animated GIF, I don't think, but we'll see. Click import all. And they should all line up down here for me. Brilliant. Okay. So we've got the portrait, the actual model itself. We've got the normal map. We've got the image, actually the UV image there, and it's already attempted to start turning it into materials. So in Unreal, if you can apply just textures to things, but if you turn them into materials and apply them to things, you have a lot more functionality that's available to you. You can do a lot more to it. You can do all kinds of different crazy things to it. It's mad. It's huge. There are actually specialists that just specialize in like materials in Unreal because it's such a massive thing. I look at some of it and it's just like it's absolutely ridiculous how complicated people have made it. But yeah, they're obviously, if you're really clever, you know how to do that stuff. That makes sense. Cool. So you can see we've got stars next to it. That means that they've been imported, but they haven't been saved to the project yet. So always a good idea to regularly click on the save all. That means it's committed to the project then, which means that if it crashes, you know, and this is computationally expensive technology and software. So you know, sometimes things will go wrong. Sometimes things will cause it to not be very happy, and it will crash on you. So if they've got stars next to them, then they're not being committed and saved to the project. But if you click save all, then even if it crashes, all that stuff will still be there. So good thing to remember. Okay, so let's have a look at our materials. So what we've got going over here, this one. So there's an error in it because that's obviously supposed to be something different. Oh no, actually that is supposed to be that one just there. So what's the issue there? Let's tab that across like that. Okay, well I'll just do it manually myself then. So it should have done that for me already, but I'll just click and drag that up, drop it in there, delete that one instead then, and I just connect the RGB to the base color, like so. It's brought the normal map in okay. It's not no problems with that. That's been connected to the normal slot just there. So I'll just click save. Close that down. I'll just double click the portrait to see how it's looking so far. Cool. So you can see it's expecting two materials to be associated with it because we set up two IDs for it in 3D Studio Max. So that's the frame. Like so, yeah, cool. Obviously, it's a lot brighter in here. That's because the standard lighting in Unreal is very bright. So we can adjust that as well, and I will adjust that. So I'll just light source, turn that down a little bit, turn that to 2, and then is there a skylight is set to there, and we'll just change that maybe to 1.5. There we go, so it's a little bit light, a little bit darker for us, sorry. Cool, so that's that part, and then what I need to do now is I need to import. Now, I've already gone into, I've already gone to edit plugins, and you can see I've already uploaded this animated texture GIF importer. Yeah, so I just need to click enabled, and when you do that, it will say it needs to be restarted. So if you click restart, save as selected, it won't take very long in theory for it to load back up for you. It just needs to restart so it understands that you've got it in there. And as I said, it was just easy to. I just downloaded that, and then I told it to add it to this version of the engine. So I'm using 4.22 at the moment. That probably won't mean anything to you because you don't know what Unreal Engine is yet, but there are different versions of the engine. This one's 4.22. Just go with it. It's all good. And yeah, so now that should be enabled. So now I should be able to go to import, and I should be able to go to that folder again. And there's the GIF. Click open, and voila! Very exciting. Because as I say, you can't normally import GIFs into Unreal. It has to be a video or something. But as you can see, it's working at the moment, which is great. Oh, that's really cool as well. You've got options here to change the play rate, so I can make that really fast, or you can make it, or you can slow it down. You can slow it down to like 0.8 or something. That's great, cool. Okay, so I'll just click save to make the change saves there. So this then needs to be added. So this is the material that's been created for this. I could just delete that. In fact, I'll show you. I'll just delete that material, and then I'll right click on the texture that I want to turn into a material and click create material. It's that easy. Hit enter once to confirm, hit enter again to open it up, and there you go. You can see it's been added to it, and there is the texture. I'm going to also add it to emissive color, so it makes it a little bit more emissive, makes it a little bit more, so you can see it a bit better. Click save. And now if I go over here, I'll just pull that tab across there so I can see both. And the easiest way to do it is just literally to grab the material, pull it up to that tab, and then drop it on the right slot just there. And there we go. And I really like the fact that we've got these etches in here as well. That's completely by accident. Tell you what I don't like though is actually I don't think I should have put emissive on it. So hold down Alt and click to remove that. Save that because she's looking a bit too bright now. See how that looks a bit better? Yeah, you can see it a bit better now, can't you? Cool. So save that. Close those down. And now I can just drag that into the scene like that. Pop it on the wall like that. Hit play. And there we go. Boom. That's it. That is how we get a picture frame with an animated GIF inside of it. Okay? And obviously once you've done the first one, dead easy. There's an element of modularity to it, because now what I can do is I could in theory I could duplicate this by just right clicking and duplicate, and then import another GIF, and right click on that, turn that into a material, and then drag that material onto here instead. You know what I mean? As long as I try and make sure it's roughly the same dimension. So again, that 800 by 450. In fact, you know, it could be bigger than that or smaller than that, but as long as you're sticking to that that 16 by 9 ratio roughly, then you're going to be fine. And that's basically then how we start decorating this around, you know, because we can just obviously put these in here, and you know, if I wanted to, I could just scale that one down a little bit as well, so that one's a little bit smaller that way there. Yeah, cool. And obviously, and then what I can do is I can actually rotate the portrait around, you know, so if you're going for like a landscape one instead, then we'll just have that one there, and then we just obviously we rotate it around if the GIF that you brought in is landscape instead, so that one goes there, you know. And what we do is we dot these around in lots of different places, because we're using the same frame for that, and then that would create the illusion then of, you know, there wasn't anything that was too similar. So that one will be over there, you know, and then we'd have like, you know, maybe, I don't know, 10 different frame designs perhaps, and we could try and, you know, make it really interesting as well by having some of them where they're different shapes like this, you know, got a round bit, around that bit. That'd be really cool. Yeah, just to sort of see how we got on with that bit. That'd be really cool and interesting, and maybe some round ones and stuff. So yeah, that is how you do it. That's the kind of the process. And as I say, the one thing that I'm slightly unhappy about is just slow my camera down so it doesn't keep jumping around so much. So I can get a little bit closer in here. There we go. Yeah, the one thing I'm not massively happy about is that line there. But I'm being a bit of a perfectionist, because the chances are, people aren't going to get that close to it, as I'm doing there. But what's the point in doing it if you're not going to try and do it right? You know what I mean? So what I would do to resolve that is I'd have to go back in, and I'd have to kind of free UV islands, like I said before, in 3D Studio Max. Have it where, instead of it being just in 2 bits, have 3 bits, and have it like where essentially this bit, that's your picture bit, but these bits that I'm just highlighting now are all, they're a separate bit, and that edge there was connected to that edge there, and that would resolve those lines then. That would make it a lot cleaner, so that's probably the best way forward. And in actual fact, that would make perfect sense as well, because really this was almost a silly way of doing it, because if you think about where I've placed the frame in Photoshop around it, the only thing that's really getting the benefit of that is these little bits here, which are obviously on the inside. So yeah, they're not really getting the benefit from that. So actually, yeah, it was a really silly way of approaching it. I'm obviously rushing ahead, not really thinking about what that would look like in the end. But yeah, but hopefully you can learn. I've certainly learned from my mistake there, so hopefully you can learn from that as well. But yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. So yeah, we've not lasted the whole 2 hours at all, which is good. But I think it was alright. Hopefully it gave you guys an insight into how you would approach something like this. Again, not a refined, polished tutorial that you would hopefully get whilst you're in session, or some of the other videos that I put on Digital Online Tutor, but an insight into how you approach doing something new, maybe, just thinking outside the box and having a play around with these things. So yeah, hopefully that was helpful. I'll just hang on for a little bit just on here, because I know there's a bit of a delay in this going out, so I'll just hang on to see if there's any questions that people might have. If you haven't got any questions, just let me know that you're okay, I guess, and then I'll know that you're still hearing this, and that you are actually okay. I might do a couple more, not live tutorials, but I might do some other videos for this as well, just to kind of look at how you do other parts of this kind of grand staircase, because there's obviously like doorways and things like that to consider, and textures for the walls as well. So I might do a couple more from that. I need to post in the link as well for you guys, don't I? I need to post in the link for the other tutorial. I have just worked it out. I've just worked out why I couldn't see that before as well. That makes perfect sense. Cool. I will just go on and see if I can find the video for you. There it is. I'll just share that. Copy. And there you go. There's the link for cool. Yeah, that's the link for it. Yeah. So cool. No questions. Looks really good though. Thank you very much, Robin. It's very kind. Jaden, nice one. Good stuff. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, again, hopefully that gave you a bit of an insight. And it's going to be useful to you guys, certainly as a kind of a heads up for what's coming next year. Charlotte looks doable, don't have anything to ask, enjoy watching the process though. Yeah, cool, nice one. I think sometimes it is nice to watch the process of things, in terms of how they come about. Again, really sorry about the technical issues at the start of the live cast. Completely my fault, like, just don't even know why I didn't charge up my earphones, like, just completely forgot. Apologies. Yeah, So that concludes our challenge week. If you do have a go at this at some other point and you wanna, you've got any questions about it, feel free to get in contact with me on here. Obviously, we're not really doing loads at the moment, are we? I'm still working on the virtual reality art gallery and stuff, which is coming together nicely. But apart from that, I'm pretty much free. So yeah, just give me a shout if you've got any questions or anything. But yeah, awesomeness. Thanks very much, guys. Yeah, I'll see you, or I'll hear from you. Well, I'll hopefully see you in September, but I might hear from you before then. So yeah, take care. All the best. Look after yourselves. Stay safe and all that. Yeah, and I'll speak to you soon. Thanks a lot. Thanks for tuning in.